You think you know the story, but the deeper you go into Shannen Doherty, the more it starts to feel like two completely different narratives. The one the public was told, and the one that was actually happening behind the scenes. Because here's the thing, her reputation didn't just appear overnight. It was built, repeated, reinforced, and once it took hold, it became almost impossible to escape. Let's go back again. But this time, let's slow down and look closer. During Beverly Hills 90210, the pressure wasn't normal. This wasn't just a hit show. It was a phenomenon. The cast wasn't just acting. They were being followed, photographed, analyzed, everywhere they went. And Shannen was right at the center of it. But unlike some of her co-stars, she didn't play along with the system. She wasn't trying to be liked. She wasn't trying to be polished. And in Hollywood, that's a problem. Because the industry doesn't just want talent. It wants compliance. There were stories about her being late, stories about her being outspoken, stories about her pushing back. But here's what rarely gets mentioned. Multiple cast members years later have admitted everyone on that set had tension, everyone had conflicts, everyone had moments, but only one person became the headline. And that matters, because when conflict happens, the industry doesn't always pick the most accurate story. It picks the most convenient one. And Shannen became that story. Now let's talk about one of the most talked about moments, her alleged role in getting fired. Because the narrative has always been, she caused problems, complaints were made, and she was removed. But here's the part people gloss over. The show itself was under pressure. Ratings fluctuations, creative shifts, cast dynamics evolving. And sometimes, removing one person becomes the easiest solution, not necessarily the most fair, but the most convenient. And that's what makes this complicated. Because yes, there were conflicts, but was she the only one responsible? That question never really got answered. Now let's move into the next chapter, Charmed. This was supposed to be redemption, a second chance, a clean slate, and at first, it looked like it was working. The show had strong ratings, a loyal fan base, and Shannen's character was central. But once again, the same pattern started to emerge. Tension, conflict, stories leaking, this time centered around Alyssa Milano. And here's where things get even more layered, because years later, both sides have spoken. Alyssa has described the set as tense, difficult, uncomfortable at times. Shannen, on the other hand, has suggested that the situation was more complex. Creative differences, power struggles, network influence. And again, we see the same pattern, two people involved, one narrative dominating, and once again, Shannen leaves the show. Now at this point, her reputation wasn't just forming, it was solidified in Hollywood. She became a risk, and once you're labeled a risk, studios hesitate, producers hesitate, opportunities shrink. And here's what's important. This wasn't just about behavior, it was about branding. Because by the early 2000s, her name came with a story attached. And in Hollywood, that can be more powerful than your actual work. Now let's go even deeper. Because outside of the set, the tabloids were relentless. This was peak paparazzi culture. And Shannen was a target. There were reports of bar fights, arguments, legal trouble. Some confirmed, some exaggerated. But here's the key detail. Every incident, no matter how small, was amplified. Because once the narrative exists, everything feeds it. And suddenly, you're not just living your life, you're performing inside a story you didn't fully create. And that's what happened. Now here's where things start to shift again. Because time changes perspective. As the years passed, more people began speaking differently about her. Not as a problem, but as someone who knew her lines, showed up prepared, took her work seriously. And that creates a contradiction. Because now, the difficult narrative doesn't fully match the experiences of people who worked with her later. So what changed? Was it her? Or was it how people were willing to see her? Because the industry changed too. Conversations about workplace dynamics, gender bias, power structures started becoming more open. And suddenly, the idea of a woman being labeled difficult started being questioned. Now let's talk about the most defining chapter of her later life, her illness. Because when breast cancer entered the picture, everything shifted, not just for her, but for how the public saw her. She didn't hide it, she shared it. The treatments, the fear, the physical toll, the emotional reality. And what people saw was strength. Not the kind that comes from being perfect, but the kind that comes from enduring something you didn't choose. And in that moment, the old narrative started to crack. Because suddenly, she wasn't a headline. She was human. And that changed everything. Now here's the part that really matters. When you step back and look at her entire career, you don't just see scandals, you see patterns. You see a young actress rising fast, an industry quick to label, a media culture that amplified conflict, a system that didn't allow much room for complexity. And then, you see someone who kept going anyway, through criticism, through setbacks, through health battles. She didn't disappear, and that matters, because Hollywood is full of people who had one controversy and never worked again. Shannen didn't follow that path. She kept showing up, and maybe that's the real truth behind all of this. Not that she was perfect, but that she was persistent. And persistence, in an industry that labels you early, might be the most underrated form of strength there is. So when people talk about the scandals, maybe they're only telling part of the story. Because what looks like drama from the outside often looks very different from the inside. And maybe, just maybe, the real story of Shannen Doherty was never about being difficult. It was about being unwilling to become what the industry expected her to be.